AM 1580 WVKO The Praise, where we are the voice of the people. Get ready for Let's Talk About Health with your hosts, Dr. Amanda Flowers, Dr. Victor McCoy, and Dr. Mark White, where your health is your wealth. On AM 1580 WVKO The Praise, where we are the voice of the people.
Good morning, Columbus. Thank you for tuning in to AM 1580 WVKO The Praise, the voice of the people. Welcome to Let's Talk About Health. I'm Dr. Amanda Flowers in the studio today with Dr. Mark White. Dr. Victor McCoy is not with us this morning, but he'll be joining us again next week. Good morning, Dr. White.
Good morning, Columbus. Good morning. Good morning. Happy 4th of July.
Yes, it is Independence Day, Dr. White.
Yeah, boy.
Well, you know, listeners, divorce rates all across the globe have rapidly been on the rise, with 40 to 50% of couples in the United States ending their marriages in divorce. Today, we're going to talk about ways to reinvent your life after divorce through healthy co-parenting, transitioning back into dating, meditation, and various forms of art therapy. And we have two special guests with us this morning to help us embrace these strategies as we truly breathe hope into the lives of singles, divorced, married, and married individuals, all at different stages of life. So we are excited to welcome Miss Carla Willis to Let's Talk About Health, a spiritually driven woman on a conquest to uplift others and inspire them through her gift of poetry. Miss Willis's first priority is being the loving mother of a 16-year-old daughter and 7-year-old son. She is an appeals letter reviewer for United Healthcare, where she has been employed for 14 years. In addition, Miss Willis is the co-founder of two companies, M&S Dream Chaser Productions, which is a poetry event planning company, as well as Infinite Entertainment Group, which is an all-inclusive promotion, marketing, and copywriting firm geared towards indie artists. Furthermore, Ms. Willis is the producer, co-host, marketing chair, and community liaison for the internet blog talk radio show Poetic Conversations, which airs every Monday at 9 p.m. on Black Satin Radio. Through her poetic endeavors, Ms. Willis is known as Mystery. Good morning, Ms. Willis. It's certainly a pleasure to have you in the studio this morning.
Good morning, Amanda. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it so much.
Yes, wonderful. Well, Columbus, we are also excited to welcome Dr. Satori Seals to Let's Talk About Health, a multi-talented man who was inspired by God to obtain a Master of Business Administration, a Doctorate of Metaphysics, a Doctorate of Divinity, and he aspires to obtain a Philosopher of Metaphysics degrees. So, Lady Thomas, if you're listening as you talk about the super doctors, this right here is really the super doctor.
Wow.
Yes.
Whoa.
In his spiritual quest to provide wisdom, expand upon the gift of love, and facilitate guidance in everyday issues, Dr. Seals holds an eldership position. He facilitates vibe and coaching sessions to bring forth spiritual truths and principles. He has assisted in setting up 3 ministries, and he is the organizer and spiritual director of the Ruach Communal Coalition. Dr. Seals also has a DVD course on self-improvement. He taught marketing and business management on the community college level. He holds certifications through the Department of Defense, and he has held professional license in various insurances and annuities. Dr. Seals is the author of 5 books and will soon be releasing his 6th book. And furthermore, Dr. Seals is the other co-host of Black Satin Radio's Poetic Conversation show, and he is the proud father of a 19-year-old daughter and 2 sons, ages 15 and 18. Good morning, Dr. Seals. It's a blessing to have you with us this morning as well.
Hey, good morning, Dr. Flowers and Dr. White.
Yes.
I'm actually excited to be here.
Good. Well, we're excited to have you both. Thank you for joining us this morning. Well, you know, we've all heard that stereotype that men bored with the constraints of a monogamous relationship heartlessly leave their wives, and while these bachelors enjoy the freedoms of single life, their exes sob in the misery of being brokenhearted. Although this is sometimes true, our society has lost touch in the fact that men crave marital relationships just as much as women. What may be even more striking for some is that women may initiate more divorces than men, and there are a few gender differences on which spouses engage in affairs preceding a divorce. Furthermore, on average, women seem to suffer less post-breakup, as the protective and mental health effects of marriage is greater for men, who often feel they have more to lose in a divorce. So listeners, do you have questions for us this morning that has to do with divorce or relationships? Give us a call at 614-824-2139 or 824-2336. So doctors and Miss Willis, can you tell me what are the harmful effects of divorce? Why are these sometimes stronger for men than they are for women? And I will tell my guest that Dr. White is not going to speak because he's going to let you guys speak first. So Miss Willis or Dr. Sills, whichever one of you want to speak on the harmful effects of divorce and why they're harder on men sometimes.
Well, I say that I think it's tougher on men because, you know, they weren't raised to be nurturers. They were raised to be providers. So when you're talking about becoming a nurturer, domesticated, there's a lot of skills you have to be a father and trying to take care of the household as well as still providing.
Yes.
It's definitely a challenge for them. And whereas women, we have been raised from young girls to be nurturers, even with doll babies. I mean, we've been pretty much, you know, molded and shaped into that way of thinking. So I definitely believe that the challenge for men is harder because it is a domesticated challenge for them. When they have been in a marriage, normally the wife takes that role.
Yes. Dr. Sills, Dr. White?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and chime in real fast. I think we can refer back to the Bible where it talks about, you know, it's not good for man to be alone. And so when we look at that, you know, when a man is blessed to build a partner with a woman, he comes outside himself. Mm-hmm. And so what happens when you have a divorce, it brings him back into himself. And so once you've been out to be able to function, you know, and being able to interact socially and also tap into yourself emotionally and everything, you know, the man is geared to provide. The man is geared to execute. The man is geared to carry out things. So what begins to happen is that becomes a part of his identity. That's his true makeup. So he's functioning at capacity. So when that's taken away, that's a major part of it. That's why every time you get in arguments, the man be like, you know, man and woman conflict. The man be like, well, I did this. It's because he's executing. He speaks through that. His love language is through that. You know, so when you take that away, it pulls him back into inside himself. And I also want to just say real fast, divorce in the Greek means a defection. So the man and the woman is affected, you know, as well. But this is the part of the man, is that it's actually a defection. You feel like you're a product on an assembly line and you've just been thrown away.
Yes.
And so that feeling is even greater, you know, inside the man. So,
Dr. White?
Yes, I think that for a lot of men, especially if there's children involved, I think that there's a lot of fear in the fact that they, you know, when they, in this divorce, at the end of the day, are they going to lose their children? Will there be this connection with the children, and how will they navigate the wife that they're divorced from and still be able to you know, have access and love their children? And as we know, you know, this is a fact that, you know, a lot of times in our society, the woman ends up with the children, and the man ends up getting these coming to see the children once a week or on the weekend and that sort of thing. And it's funny because, as mentioned before, we're not nurturers instinctually. Men aren't. And and that's, I think that is that can be somewhat scary, you know, to think that, you know, even on every other weekend or whatever the situation might be. But I will say that as a single parent that takes care of a child, that we can do it. I mean, we do have a nurturing side. It just hasn't been tapped into.
Yes.
And we can take care of a 3-year-old, a 3-month-old, and because all it takes is love.
Yes.
And so I think that, and we just haven't, that's a loaded question, because it goes back into our bringing, how we were brought up, and how we were, how we were raised, and where was the dad when we were children. So there's a lot to that answer, but I would say that my short version of the answer is that, short version of the answer is that, a lot of men are scared of that, of how do I handle this child?
And Dr. McCoy, I'm sorry, I'm going to call you. Dr. McCoy must be listening and thinking about us. And some of the things you were saying, and just kind of how men are instinctually, the research is showing that men are neurochemically predisposed to find breakups more difficult than what women are, and men are less accustomed to seek or receive emotional support outside of their spouses, and sometimes they develop suicidal ideations after breakup. They have changes in lifestyles like tobacco and alcohol use, and sometimes, when there's two, one can encourage the other not to do things, but if the wife is not there, things can get a little difficult for them. Men, even though divorced women remarry less than what divorced men do, in the short term, it seems to be harder for men than it is for women to get back into relationships. And a lot of this is just due to men don't allow themselves to grieve properly. And I think this goes back to some of the things that Dr. Sills and Miss Willis were saying as well, and that men are just providers. They're tough, and these are the things that they do. So sometimes they don't express their feelings or let things pour out after a breakup, and these can even lead to high blood pressures and different types of health and mental health problems.
And one thing that I would add to that is, and we have not had that in our community. I would say that I haven't seen that as a major thing that we have emphasized is self-care. And so when we get into a situation where we have to cope with a situation where there's abandonment or a breakup or of any kind of real emotional mental health situation, and we don't have the self-care there, the coping skills, appropriate healthy coping skills for self-care.
Yes.
This is where you see the drugs and the alcohol, the sex, the whatever.
Yes.
Right. And so I just want to add that in there, because it's not that African American males just fall apart for no reason, but I think there's a lot
of layers, and next week we're going to be talking about some more of this too, so that's going to be exciting. Did you have something else you want to say?
Well, just to pick on what Dr. White was saying, I think what begins to happen is that it throws a man off balance. You know what I'm saying? It really just is a psychological effect, an emotional effect that that it splits him. So I think what begins to happen is that it shifts the man, psychologically. Then on top of, a lot of times when we're young and being bred up as young men, we're not taught to visit ourselves emotionally.
Yes.
So normally, it's funny, what normally happens is, to be honest, most men learn to be sensitive to their emotions when they actually get married, or they engage in a long-term relationship with a woman, because she brings that out of them. So I want to bring that out real, a lot, because what begins to happen when he has that, and then he's lost that, it just shifts him.
Yes.
And he's totally off balance. And so, biorhythmically, everything just throws him off. And then he got all this sensation going on side that is totally different. And that sends a man into a cave like you're talking about. And so then what happens is he finds himself antisocial, not on purpose, but he's just, that social piece, he finds himself withdrawing and isolating. Think about men. We all go to our cave. We all got a man cave.
Right.
So I just want to point that out real fast. Nice point, Dr. White.
And Miss Willis, did you have anything else?
Oh no, but I mean, both of them definitely. Dr. Flowers definitely addressed the fact that there's no real nurturing there, and then the chaos within after the split is definitely a challenge for men.
Absolutely. Well, divorce can bring out the worst in some people while others maintain friendships with their exes. For those struggling, perhaps there's lingering hurt because one person left, someone cheated, or someone fell out of love. And this type of hurt lingers for many years for some divorced couples. It's unfortunate that kids, although they never ask to be a part of divorce scenarios, sometimes get caught in the middle of the tension. But if ex-spouses can remember that children should not bear the brunt of their mistakes or the decisions they made, they'll be on a good path to successful co-parenting. So can you guys tell me this morning, what are the biggest obstacles for successful co-parenting, and how can parents overcome these challenges to develop a peaceful atmosphere for children? And listeners, what challenges are you faced with after divorce? Or even if you're not divorced, what obstacles are you encountering with co-parenting? Give us a call at 614-824-2139 or 824-2336. So obstacles for successful parenting, and how can we get over that?
Well, for me, I know I've had 2 divorces, unfortunately, and I think the biggest challenge for me personally was the parenting status with your child. A lot of times when we're splitting or parting ways, we find that the divorce is now a separation, but it doesn't mean that we cannot continue to be cordial or have the same paralleled idea of how to raise the child in the betterment of the child's interest. So I think the biggest thing is for me, it was either the other parent was absent completely, or the other parent was not absent completely, but very minimal, had a very minimal contact with my child. So what I felt at that point is I'm pretty much going to be the headhunter, so now I'm going to have to implement other people, at least male figures in my children's lives that I felt would be important. I think that's the biggest thing, is even with daughters and sons, I think we need to make sure that we implement, if the father or the wife or the ex-wife is not involved with the child, then you want to make sure that you put in place a person or that energy in the child's life so that they are balanced. I'm big about the importance of a male figure, because even with my daughter, I think she needs a hard hand sometimes to kind of be like, look, you have to do this, you have to do that, to kind of keep that discipline. So I just implemented, I think for me the challenge was to implement male figures that were substantiating a positive figure in their lives to make sure that they had a well balance.
Yes. Dr. White, Dr. Sills, any comments about the obstacles for co-parenting and how we overcome that?
Where do I begin? Where do I begin? I'll say, I'm actually a single father, and I have full custody of my oldest son. And also, one of the things I observed from doing my own personal children and then other children I have mentored is the cultural piece. Typically, we think about when divorce happens, the obvious part is a division that occurs. But it's a division in ideas, and with the ideas, that means that the culture has followed. So someone's ideas and how something needs to be carried out in terms of the philosophy that bringing up the child or bringing them up, it becomes compromised. So it becomes really, really tough. And in some cases, some maybe a little bit less, but some of the others, you see this major conflict inside the inside the cultural piece with the expressions you want your child to experience. So I think the cultural piece is the main.
Wonderful. Well, you're listening to Let's Talk About Health on AM 1580 WVKO The Praise, where we are the voice of the people. Please join our show after the break with your questions by calling 614-824-2139 or 824-2336.
This is First Lady Jawanda Thomas from The Truth Church, and I want you to tune in every Saturday at 10 a.m. where Let's Talk About Health, because your health is your wealth, with Dr. Amanda Flowers, Dr. Mark White, and Dr. Victor McCoy, the Super Doctors, on AM 1580 WVKO, The Praise, the voice of the people.
Welcome back. You are tuned into Let's Talk About Health on AM 1580 WVKO The Praise, the voice of the people. I'm Dr. Amanda Flowers in the studio today with Dr. Mark White, Dr. Satori Sales, and Miss Carla Willis, discussing ways to reinvent your life, divorce, parenting, meditation, and various forms of art therapy. Give us a call at 614-824-2139 or 824-2336. We're here to help you pave the way to the path of your life that your heart desires. So we have a question coming in. Dr. Sales, one of our listeners, said they like your definition of divorce and Greek defection. Please, can you tell us how a divorce should heal from that type of defection?
Great question. Defection means that a lot of us feel inferior. Mm-hmm. So I think that's the first thing we need to identify. Some form of way we feel inferior from that divorce. We feel like we have failed. The main thing we need to do is tap into the forgiveness piece. And the forgiveness positions us, it gives opportunity to be able to reset. All right. Also with that inferiority, when we develop an understanding of our situation, an understanding about ourselves, an understanding of the impacts, then we're no longer feel inferior. Anytime we implement understanding in a situation, we no longer feel inferior. So I think it's very important as we are trying to go through that process of trying to feel like we're no longer defective, is to understand us, get back in tune with us, and also begin to forgive ourselves, and also begin to forgive the other person. I know that might be a challenge for some people, but the forgiveness gives room for the other person to begin to grow. When you got to neutralize the situation, so you got to neutralize your feelings, and that's what I'm saying about forgiveness right now. So it opens up that exchange. You think about the word forgive, which means you're assisting in exchange. And so if you're not forgiving, you're closing the exchange for you to begin to heal from that defection.
Absolutely. Well, Dr. White?
No, and I was just going to reiterate, in those situations, again, I think we have to point the arrow towards ourselves and self-care, and try to take care of ourselves, because when we really focus on our self-care, we will be able to forgive other people a lot easier. And I think once the forgiveness is in there, and then because the whole idea is for the child to be loved. Mm-hmm. And so when we can forgive and we are looking into the situation with compassion and love towards the other person, and especially for the child, I think it sets a better environment for the when my side of the street is clean, and even if the other situation isn't clear and clean, I think it sets for a better environment for the child. Mm-hmm. And that's what we're focusing on.
Absolutely. But everyone's divorce story is different. Some couples have been married for decades, while others just a year or so. Some disagreed about the idea of divorce. Others agreed that separation was best. Some couples have children. Others have pets that they fear losing. Some individuals are relieved, while others are heartbroken. Regardless of how people get there, sometimes the question that they are all asking is, where do I go from here? How do you figure out who you are to move forward, and what is your life going to look like, and how do you start to take these steps? So can you guys tell me, what advice do you have for reinventing your life as a single person, and what approaches should individuals take when they start dating again, especially if children are in the future? In the picture. Hey, if you're dating again, I might be in the future too.
Well, for me, I know I had to reiterate and change a lot of things. I had to change my environment, for one, so I had to implement parameters up I don't allow like different. If I am considering dating someone, I don't allow them to be around my children. I'm big about it personally. But unless they have a substantial relationship, unless I know that it's going to go somewhere, then I will introduce them to my children. But I kind of keep my dating life and my my children's life separate. My parenting is separate from it. So that's how I'm pretty much handling the single life and dating. But I also am big about, it's important that we as parents, we don't lose sight of taking care of us. So we have to always be mindful that when you are doing something for your children that's wonderful and important, but always remember to take care of you as well. We have to do things for ourselves. And a lot of times I think when we split someone and then we leave the relationship, we find ourselves just devoted to our children, which is beautiful. But what are you going to do when your children are grown or they're moved on and now you're in a home alone and you don't know where's my self-worth, where's my self-love, and you don't find that because you don't know it, because you're not taking time to really do an inventory of what you want and finding your passions and your dreams, because at the end of the day your children are just here on borrowed time. Yes. So you want to always be mindful that you take care of yourself as well.
Dr. Sills, Dr. White?
Well, I think, hone in on what Dr. White's been bringing out is the self-care piece. Mm-hmm. I mean, what Mystery brought out, it's so essential, because at that time you visit yourself. And as long as we're ignoring ourselves, the more we create our own problems. And so we always can track back. A lot of stuff goes back to the self. I think the most another thing to add to this is when we're trying to, we got to realize it's okay for us to re-socialize ourselves. Mm-hmm. And I think that's very important. To be honest with you, I can imagine people that have been divorced like in the 80s and beyond, before social media, because I bet that was a barrier, because I know for me, social media really has helped me personally. I was able to rebuild a social dynamic that I probably wouldn't be able to do if social media wasn't existing, because when I got divorced, my children were already mature. And so, to add with that, my children gave me the validation. They gave me permission. Mm-hmm. So some of us need to give ourselves permission. All three of my children basically was like, look, Dad, we trust you. Go ahead and you need to do what you need to do. And my son specifically sat me down and was like, I don't want to see you go into depression or anything like that. I mean, he came from a whole nother space. I'm looking at him like, he's become a man. He talking to me, and we're just saying, what we were saying was, I'm not going to get in the way of you trying to rebuild yourself socially. So I want to add that piece on top of what Mystery shared, and what Dr. White was saying, self-care, is also give yourself permission to re-engage and socialize. Please do not isolate yourself from the social media. Our minds, our souls, our emotions don't grow and develop if we're not exchanging.
Yes, absolutely. And as we are talking about self-care, we want to bring up a topic called meditation. This is the progressive quieting of our minds until we reach the source of thought, which in wisdom traditions are the realm of our soul and spirit. In this domain of awareness, there is infinite creativity, synchronicity, the power of intention, and freedom from limitations. So, doctors and Ms. Willis, can you tell me what are the physiological, psychological, and spiritual effects of meditation? And we'll start with the physiological effects. What are the physiological effects of meditation?
Oh, yes. Okay, I was on.
Well, Dr. White was listening to me.
Meditating.
All you have to do is say it, he goes into it.
Right. Well, Dr. Flowers, this is really an important part of my daily thing. And I think that as far as our physiological, our bodies, when we stop our mind, when we're even willing to stop thinking and let our mind stop with the thoughts, our physiology slows down. Chemicals that are released when we're on the go slow down. Our blood pressure drops. Our breathing changes. Our heart rate stops. And I think when we get to a point where we have slowed all the way down, we can hear things better, and we can think better. We can answer the solutions to things that would be baffling to us. We can intuitively answer some of those questions. And so I think that from a physiological standpoint, our bodies, if we could take our heads off and sit it on the side and then operate, we would find our lives would be a lot better. There's a book called The Power of Now. I won't say the author's name, but I think that when we meditate, there's something beyond our minds.
Yeah. Well, as you talk about taking your head off and your mind and all that, can doctors and Miss Willis, can you tell me what are some of the psychological effects of meditation?
I know for me, I get a lot more clarity. There's a heightened awareness of even like my exposure of even with my children, my family, my environment. I feel a sharpening in my environment as far as my energy is higher, and I can always tell if I don't do meditation that I'm off balance. Just like if I don't go into prayer, I'm off balance. So it's always mandatory for me, even if it's for 5 to 10 minutes, to go into that solace, that quiet, that stillness, because I think when you're still and you allow yourself to just become one with God, I think it definitely takes you to a higher awareness.
And as you're talking about being one with God and things, what are some of the spiritual effects of meditation?
I love this topic because I meditate frequently. The spiritual, let me point this out real fast about meditation for all of our listeners. Meditation, the root word is meta. Okay? And so in meditation, I want everybody to understand there is a medicinal effect. So that's one of the spiritual benefits of meditating. There's a medicinal effect that Dr. White mentioned about it transcends physiologically and also psychologically. What begins to happen in meditation is that we switch from the beta waves. If someone don't understand, we know we're all energy. We all put off like a frequency like the radio. And we go from the beta wave where we're conscious in thought, but then we can shift into the alpha, which we begin to relax a little bit, and then we can go into the theta. The goal and what happens in meditation, then also the heighten is the delta. Okay? And so what happens in meditation, normally we go from beta, we go to delta, then we come back. That's when we all of a sudden come in meditation, boom, we snap right back and we're all rejuvenated. And so one of the benefits of it is there's a rejuvenation, there's a life, there's an exploration that comes, and there's an enlarging, expanding of the intuitiveness ability for us to be able to use our cognitive abilities. Our solution's inside of us that says, the truth is within. So I desire the truth in the inward part. So the spiritual aspect is that meditation brings that out. I like to say prayer is self-emptying, and meditation is allowing yourself to be filled, by the Spirit. And that goes back to what the root word in meditation is is medicinal. Okay, so that's the spiritual effect and benefits I want to add into that.
Wonderful. And I love that. I just want to reiterate what he said. Prayer is like the pouring out, and then the meditation is allowing to be filled back up. So that is wonderful. That's really something that we all need to think about. And we need to do them both. It's it should just become part of our daily routine, and multiple times a day as well. As Miss Willis was saying, this isn't something that sometimes we may take a long time in meditation, but sometimes we just take a few minutes just to go there. Just like you should be praying throughout the entire day as well.
It's a reset.
Yes.
Right. That's right. It gives our minds and spirit a moment to reset. Everything in life is all action, activity, boom, 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 is just going 100 miles an hour. And in psychology, we're not designed to continue to be highly active. Our bodies need rest, our minds need rest, and our spirit needs freedom and permission to reign inside of us to refill us.
Yes. Listeners, what questions do you have about meditation? Is this something that you desire to incorporate in your daily routine, but you haven't quite completed this task? Give us a call at 614-824-2139 or 824-2336. We're here to help you make those changes starting today. And as I was saying, some people like the idea of meditation, but they just don't know where to begin. What would be an easy way for someone to start meditating? Can anyone just sit down, close their eyes, and meditate, or does someone need special training to do this?
Well, for me, I had went to Dr. Satori over here and asked him to assist me on what type of ways to meditate. So it's always a challenge for me. I think when I was coming into this awareness and spirituality, I was trying to really balance and come up with how do I implement this in my daily routine without losing my prayer time, and I just didn't know that they were so parallel. So I was big about how do I do this? What do I do? What style do you use? How do you do it? And all this. So then he gave me different ways of doing meditation, even in a sitting stature. You can do it anywhere. You can do it sitting. But what I found is he's actually let me know about ice cubes. Mm-hmm. You can put ice cubes on your back and all kinds of things you can do to heighten your meditation. But what I loved about it is that I noticed my meditation seems to be deeper for me personally in the tub. Mm-hmm. So if I'm bathing and just go into a deep meditation, for some reason the water just helps me to just be still quicker.
Well, thank you, Ms. Willis. You are listening to Let's Talk About Health on AM 1580 WVKO The Praise, where we are the voice of the people. Please call in with your questions. Join us after this break at 614-824-2139 or 824-2336.
This is First Lady Jawanda Thomas from The Truth Church, and I want you to tune in every Saturday at 10 a.m. where Let's Talk About Health, because your health is your wealth, with Dr. Amanda Flowers, Dr. Mark White, and Dr. Victor McCoy, the Super Doctors, on AM 1580 WVKO The Praise, the voice of the people.
Welcome back. You are tuned in to Let's Talk About Health on AM 1580 WVKO The Praise. I'm Dr. Amanda Flowers in the studio today with Dr. Mark White, Dr. Satori Sills, and Miss Carla Willis, and we are discussing ways to reinvent your life, especially after a divorce. We're talking about parenting, meditation, and we're getting ready to talk about various forms of art therapy. Give us a call with your questions at 614-824-2139 or 824-2336. So as we're talking about meditation, almost said medication, so we're talking about meditation, I've heard some people just through my practice say that they participated in doing meditation faithfully for years, but after getting a divorce, it seemed like their meditation practices were no longer effective. So, after divorce, individuals lose their sense of identity. They have parental instincts that are challenged. And as I was talking about earlier, they haven't let themselves grieve properly. There's all kinds of things that go into this. They have more on their minds than before, and their schedules seem to be more chaotic than they could ever imagine possible. So there's a big shift sometimes that comes with divorce. And so can you tell us what happens with, whether someone's divorced or not, when someone says they tried meditation, but it's not working for them anymore? A lot of people say they have too much to think about. Other people say they need to spend their time doing other things and feel like they need to be, quote unquote, more productive. So what do we say to these people? How do we talk to them when there is a little bit of resistance to meditation because they feel like their life obligations are getting in the way?
Well, let me go ahead and add this piece. It's interesting you said when people feel like they kind of went through a major life change. One thing I realized, meditation also allows us to get in touch with our breathing. Mm-hmm. Okay? And a lot of us are familiar with the breath of life. The breath of life flows through us. The breath of life keeps us connected with all of our internal organs. We are breath. Okay? And so in other wisdom traditions, they talk about how the breath actually cleans the mind. It's called a Kala Pali, mm-hmm. which means that your breath can cleanse the mind. So when you are clouded with a whole bunch of occurrences, experiences, and feelings and apprehension, inhibitions that we have, that's where the breathing techniques and stuff comes into play. You can just simply, just close your eyes, relax, sit with your, body erect, lifting your, your head up, breathe in slowly, and come down to exhale, coming back down with your chin facing to the, to your clavicle, and just do that real slowly in a very rhythmic way. And try that. I'm very big about giving someone a mm-hmm. practice, because don't even talk in theory, because meditation is a practice, okay? So do that, and as you get clear and get calm, then you can shift into that meditation. I'm going to go ahead and let Dr. White go ahead and add into it so I can feel him ready to go ahead and chime in.
No, I like this. I like what you're saying. In fact, we need to connect. I think that the one thing I would add, Dr. Flowers, is meditation. Thoughts are going through our minds unconsciously as we sit to meditate, and if we're problem free, quote unquote, and we don't have much going on, we'll be able to sit and go into that meditation a little easier. But when things are challenging us, when we have a lot of challenging, it's like anything else. If we're praying, we got to pray harder and we got to pray more. Meditation is the quieting of the mind, and so that's a situation where you may have to use different forms of meditation. There's a meditation called guided meditation where you actually are listening to someone guide you through that meditation, and so that might be a form to. But if you stick with it, and you may have your practice may have been once a day. It may have to be when you're after divorce. You may go 3 to 4 times a day with the guided meditation and just trying to. But I can guarantee you, the more you put into it, you're going to get to a level where your mind is going to start to kind of calm down, and the thoughts are not going to be rambling through there. And one of the things, I know Dr. Flowers is getting ready to cut me off.
No, not yet, baby. Dr. White knows me well. We'll cut him off in a second here.
But one of the things that I do, and this is just different little things that people have when they meditate, is that when those thoughts start coming through quickly, I have a coat rack, image of a coat rack in my mind, and because I want to focus on quieting the mind, and I'll take those thoughts and just hang them on the coat rack. Mm-hmm. Just hang them on the coat rack, because I'm not really wanting to focus on those thoughts. I just want to go easy now. Yeah. And so that's something. Those are some thoughts.
Well, listeners, embracing holistic approaches towards self-improvement is critical. They complement traditional methods for healing, and some individuals find them more beneficial than our traditional approaches. So give us a call. Where are you guys at today, listeners? I'm sure everyone's celebrating the 4th of July. But if you are listening, give us a call with your questions at 614-824-2139 or 824-2336. And as we talk about these different approaches, creativity is a concept surrounded by mystery and vagueness because it functions for the most part in the environment outside of your consciousness. To create requires us plugging into the unknown for inspiration and exploration, which later becomes translated into expression. Seeking creative solutions to problems allows a different lens to view what we've been dealing with every day than the perspectives and things that we've been doing that are no longer working. So when we talk about various forms of art and their therapeutic benefits, there's drawing, painting, poetry, writing stories, journaling, singing, dancing, martial art. All of these various types of art can be therapeutic for us to get out our emotions when we're talking about anger and frustration, if we've dealt with trauma in our past or different loss or hurt in our lives, when we if sometimes we just need to relax, and doing different forms of art helps us to relax, and sometimes we just need to get more in tune with ourselves. Sometimes we just need to express our happiness or our gratitude, and doing that through these different forms of art is helpful too. But Drs. and Miss Willis, can you tell me, is it true that art encourages relaxed absorption similar to meditation, and that where thoughts, feelings, and perceptions outside of our everyday thinking becomes accessible and we can emerge as psychological and spiritual insight?
Well, absolutely. I have to say, me personally, I had, of course, went through a divorce, and I had a friend tell me that the best way to get over something like that is to write yourself out your pain. Well, at that particular time, I happened to be a poet. I mean, I wasn't really, diving into the poetry, but I found that, okay, you know what? I think I'm going to start writing. Mm-hmm. So in that writing, it was like, okay, I can express how I feel, and then the poems would just come so often it wouldn't let me sleep. So I'm like, what's going on? I'm writing so much I can't stop. And so then I was like, you know what, this is something that is in me, and I guess all that I went through is part of my material that I'm creating now. Mm-hmm. So sometimes we have something that happens to us in our lives that we need to take notice. Sometimes it's what you would call a experience to elevate your life, elevate your next stage into your life journey. So I was really surprised, though, because I didn't even know that my poetry would come so quickly or so rapidly.
Yes.
So it was a challenge for me because it would wake me up. I would be asleep. It would wake me up out of my sleep. It would just make me so crazy. Like, what am I going to do? I can't write enough or quick enough. Mm-hmm. So it's definitely important if you go through something traumatic, especially even in death. Like when my mom passed, I got into these dolphins. I mean, dolphins were everywhere in my home. So for whatever reason, dolphins was a calming effect that I gravitated to when I went through the grieving process of losing my mom. So I had like dolphins everywhere, and then I felt a calming within. So sometimes you can do art. I know I used to draw, I used to do sketching, I used to do poetry. I always had a creative side to me, but it seems like it gets elevated, or I get more intense with it when I go through some type of trauma or experience.
Yes. And Miss Willis, can you tell us, where can we find your poetry? How do we locate you? What do we need to know about you as you help? You use your poetry to inspire others. So can you tell us how to get a hold of you?
Absolutely. I have a poetry page, fan page, which is called Poetry by Mystery. It's Misteree, and I'm glad you expressed that I do inspire others with my poetry. I like to tap into topics or issues or concerns. So you can find me there. You can also friend request me on Poet Mystery. I have my own page there. I also have, like Dr. Flowers advised, that I also have a show, Black Satin Radio, that she is a part of as well. And it's awesome. It's a beautiful thing. She comes to my show, and she just is so informative. And it's just a blessing that you became a part of my show.
You.
I'm so glad that you are, giving us so much awareness. And I think so many people are in fear of medical side, because we don't want to talk about health, but this is that show. Let's talk about health. So I love that you come there and you really implement. So please, yeah, definitely you can find me on Poetry by Mystery, or you can also find me on Black Satin Radio Poetic Conversations page as well on Facebook.
And if anyone forgets all of that, our Facebook page, Let's Talk About Health, AM 1580 WVKO The Praise, inbox me on there. We do have stuff up there about the show as well, but you can inbox me and I can get you a hold of anyone. Art, people don't always realize art in all these different forms, it's a visible testimony to the therapeutic journey, and it allows reflection on the process long after it has been completed. And art involves a series of processes from an inner image, impulse or subtle sensation to complete the entirety of a unique project. It mimics life in many ways. It's physical. Art is sometimes messy. It can be unpredictable. It's a form of play through which we seek to understand and coordinate our own process with those around us. And Dr. Stills, can you tell us, you practice in art in multiple different ways, so can you tell us about that, and then also let us know how we get in contact with you and what exciting things you have coming up next weekend?
Well, to get in contact with me, I'm very active on Facebook, so you can go to Satori Seals, Satori, Seals like the animal. Okay, and just go there, just friend request me, and I'm very easy, I'm very accessible, and also have a public page, it's Satori Gerald Seals. Now, back into the art, next week, we actually have a coaching session that's going on. That's going to be here in Columbus at Door 7. That's on 1367 East Main Street. And the course is called Your Course Towards Your Own Self-Improvement. Now, I can't go in extensive in details on that. I get excited when I think about it. But
that's a whole hour show right there, just telling about it.
Yes. So, but just understand that it brings you out to visit you. You know, our truth is hidden behind our untruths, and that's basically what I'm pretty much doing. But we're revisiting the foundation, which is in reference to ourselves, to bring that out. Now, also creatively, what I do is I write poetry as well. I actually have a book. I'm actually working on my second poetic book. Just the poetic books. I have other books as well. And one of the things I do is I found out, and kind of what Mystery said, when I went through my hard times in life, when I went in my cave, you know, I wrote my way out. And at the same time, I realized that art allows you to realize that life is not about you. Art allows you to realize that life is about life. And life is about connecting with everybody. And so through your words and through your inspiration, through your trials and your triumphs, someone can relate with that. And so I think that's really important. A lot of times in my poetry, I try to, you know, I highlight the love. I highlight the beauty in relationships. I highlight the celebration of a woman, the celebration of a man, but also talk about situational things that we might go through. And then also art. I actually do abstract art, you know, and every now and then I'll doodle something up because it allows me to tap into a whole nother side of my mind. You know, it allows me to come from the passive, creative side with no thought. And so sometimes we have to be able to venture in life without thinking. See, we fear the unknown. And so we always crave to the unknown. And art allows us to appreciate and value the unknown. And so that's one of the things I think that what it does with poetry and all the expressive things. Without the expression, we can align our spirits. And I think that's what the most important thing is.
Wonderful. And information for signing up for his courses next Saturday is on the Let's Talk About Health Facebook page, so check that out. And also, if you have any questions, inbox me if you forget how to get a hold of him. And Dr. White, any last comments for us today?
I would just add that there was a study they did hospital. These patients were they had end-stage cancer, and they were used art therapy and some other non-traditional treatments, and it showed that the patients that had that used art therapy and these other things that we've talked about today actually did better.
Wonderful.
And so I think that there is some validity to some of the things that we've talked about, and hopefully we'll be able to go on.
Well, we do thank you for listening to us today. Tune in next week to hear what the doctors have to say about health and mental health before, during, and after incarceration with our featured guest, Elder Patrice Parr. In the meantime, remember to stop by our studio at 3360 East Livingston Avenue, Suite 2A to show your support by giving a donation. Remember, your health is your wealth. Let's talk about health.